Mayor, happy 2024, and thanks for letting us in here into your beautiful office.
Thanks, Bill. It's the people's office, right? Always welcome.
What's 2024 mean to you in terms of priorities going in to the new year and sort of also continuing in your now seasoned run of sorts as mayor of Newport?
A year in and I'm seasoned, huh, Bill? So, first, this is a council that's been working really hard together. And so, in reflecting back on 2023, the thing I'm probably most thankful for is how well and effectively this council did work to address neighborhood issues. We've been very focused on things like public safety, on things like housing, on doing what we can to improve the day-to-day lives of the Newporters that live and work here every single day within the powers that we have as a city. But looking forward to 2024, I think what we're realizing is there are the larger issues that we really need to aggressively start tackling. We've known for a while that this city needs to take seriously things like resiliency, that we need to take very close looks at our education system, how we get up to par, and we need to make some bold moves on infrastructure. That's where you're going to see this council focusing for the balance of this year and this term.
That's kind of consistent with what we're hearing on a statewide basis, even with the General Assembly back in session. Speaker Shikarchi sort of echoing some of those same themes in his opening remarks, not the least of which is housing. I know you've been bullish on housing for sure in your tenure. When you look at that picture right now, the housing picture going into this, or now that we're in this new year, where does that stand and what sort of priorities do you have from even just a bully pulpit perspective?
Every community in Rhode Island is facing the same set of three issues, just different flavors, right? Housing, infrastructure, and education. So on the housing front in Newport, this is a particularly unique problem because of the nature of our housing stock and population. We're a community that goes from around 24,000 people in the wintertime to over 100,000 people on any given summer day. And that population is split, that additional population is split between people who consider this place home for a portion of the year, they're members of our community, people who are visiting Newport that we're welcoming in as important parts of our economy, the military, and of course our institutional partners and friends, people like the students at Salve, and of course Newport Hospital and the great team that they have there, other organizations like that. And so the flexibility of our housing stock is very important. What that means is this is not a one-size-fits-all type solution. The council had aggressively put forth a series of resolutions targeted at different areas we thought we might be able to help address the housing issue. As our city's planning department started working on these issues, they got hit with a huge series of zoning overhauls from the state level that they had to implement by January 1st. That put much of our housing work at the council level on hold as they shifted their focus to the mandates that were set down from the state. We gave them some additional staff, but they were so busy they haven't even had the opportunity to hire in the additional staff they need to help us expand our focus on housing. We have made progress in a few areas that are very important. The first is trying to give more tools to the administration to enforce illegal short-term rentals. The city hired a full-time short-term rental coordinator whose focus is on using the technology tools have, the on-the-ground enforcement personnel that we have, and coordinating the two to make sure that we're cracking down on the illegal short-term rentals that are in our residential neighborhoods. These are the properties that really start to threaten not only the essential housing stock that we have that our residents badly need, but also the character of these neighborhoods themselves. Second, we were able to follow through with the two-tiered tax rate. The last council created this new structure. This council actually put forth a substantial tax reduction for residents who live here year-round. This is meaningful to them. It indicates that we're serious about the value they bring to the community, and it gives them that little bit of extra breathing that they need to hold on and keep calling this place home. Finally, we're looking at the properties that exist in the city that can be redeveloped into housing. Specifically, if you look up at the Cogshell School, that's a project that we fully expect to be underway by the time we get into the June portion of this year. That developer that was selected to put forward a proposal has been hard at work taking in community feedback and input and thinking about different ways he can adapt that project to make sure it meets the expectations of this community. Now, that still leaves us a number of other areas we need to be looking at, including an overall look at our zoning code. That's work that's going to be continuing now that we're back in the new year. The planning department, in addition, has been doing a capacity study, looking at how much additional housing can we actually sustain in this community given the infrastructure that we have. So a lot of work happening on a lot of different fronts and substantial progress that we're excited to maintain and continue.
I think a lot of people, just from anecdotally speaking with people on the ground here, whether you're at Empire on Broadway or some sort of event or whatever the case may be, just want to know that something's being done. And it sounds like a lot's being done because it's just, again, on that anecdotal level, everybody senses that the city's shifting. You hear it all the time. Oh, there's more hotels, there's more Airbnbs, there's nowhere for my kids to live. And it sounds like, at least to me, that you're taking practical steps as best as you can to try to at least alleviate some of those concerns.
Every single member of the council is focused specifically on how we improve the quality of life for residents in this community and how we make sure that the resident population we have here that makes this community run can continue calling this place home. And so for this past year, it's been focused on a lot of the smaller pieces that are important to them to let them know that we're focused on the residents that live here year-round. We now need to shift towards looking at the actual backbone of this community, the infrastructure that we have in place, the education system itself, and how we make sure that that's there at the level that residents deserve year-round, in addition to being able to support the wonderful people we have coming visit us every single year.
Infrastructure is huge here. Obviously, it's not under your purview. The Newport Bridge redevelopment, as it were, and the entire North End sort of project and vision is happening as we speak. But there's even issues like sewers that are still, or water delivery that is wooden. You know, there are aspects of Newport that could almost be leveled up just across the board. What are the big infrastructure projects right now that you see as essential to move Newport forward, to at least initiate in 2024 or to continue progress on?
So I look at infrastructure in a couple different buckets. The first bucket is resiliency-related infrastructure. And this is everything from how we're looking at the Cliff Walk in Easton's Beach, to how we're addressing flooding off King Park, or how we're looking at the seawall at Parati Park, to stormwater issues in the North End. We talked earlier this year, did a whole workshop on stormwater. Just that neighborhood up off Prescott Hall in the North End needs $65 million in stormwater mitigation. These are big price tag challenges that we're going to have to find ways to fund, and the cavalry's not coming to ride in. We have been aggressively pursuing grant funding thanks to the hard work of our department heads and a newly hired grant coordinator that the city has, but we need to continue thinking about innovative ways to fund the resiliency infrastructure the city has. Almost every major decision we make from a planning or zoning perspective, development perspective, needs to be thought through. Can we sustain another hotel? Can we sustain additional housing in this area? What do we need to do to help make sure the residents currently that are struggling with flooding issues no longer have to deal with that in the future? In addition to that, we have this other pocket of infrastructure, right? This is the actual backbone of what makes the city itself function. Everything from broadband to transportation to actual municipal government. When you look at the size and the scale of our municipal government team at its core, as compared to other communities of similar size that are dealing with the types of influxes of population that we have, that are serving as the economic drivers for the state, we are severely undersized to meet the demands of what we need to in order to keep making sure this place is here in the future. And so I think you're going to see a big focus from us on those two pieces of infrastructure, resiliency and the backbone of this community, to make sure we're making the investments we need.
One practical piece of infrastructure, you mentioned Easton's Beach, the carousel, the aquarium, the operation down there. There's some scheduled demolition. Some people are sad about that. What's your take on what's happening with the demolition or scheduled demolition of the carousel and the infrastructure down there on the beach?
Count me amongst those people that are sad, right? But also being realistic here. In our lifetime, Bill, that will be underwater. And so we need to start thinking about where we're making investments that are going to be here for the long haul for this community. In the short term, our focus is very much on the safety and security of our residents. Those structures, we know, thanks to extensive engineering work that was done under the prior administration and also with the support of the Beach Commission, are not structurally stable. People should not be on there. When I saw the pictures of the Polar Plunge, I was thrilled that the event was a huge success. At the same time, I was terrified at the fact that there were people up there. Every single year, they've been closing down portions of that structure. As you know, the aquarium has been moved downtown. The carousel is set to be relocated to make sure that those historic pieces are well preserved and taken care of for a future home. But we need to be moving away from that. If you think about the beach right now itself, my concern is as much about the drinking water supply that sits immediately behind that had water halfway up that berm, or the critical transportation linkage, that state road that connects us to Middletown, as it is about the beach itself. So we know there's an enormous investment that's needed down there just to make sure that those critical assets that ensure that we can actually live here, not just enjoy this place, are taken care of first.
What's your take right now when you just look at the city as a whole? And it's obviously changed. Cities are living. They always change from decade to decade, and we all sometimes get caught up in nostalgia. Are you optimistic about Newport right now in terms of it being a place where it's got a a heart and soul in terms of its community, and it's also simultaneously advancing in terms of its modernity, in terms of infrastructure, education, you name it. Can those two places exist at the same time?
Absolutely. They have to, right? Because the reason people are coming to Newport, as opposed to any other seaside destination they could be frequenting, is because of the soul of this community. It's because of the people here that give it its unique character and charm. If we lose the people, the middle class and the working class that make Newport work, all of a sudden this becomes a place that looks like any other resort community. And so maintaining that is really important to Newport in its essence. I also think this is one of the few places where, with those challenges I laid out earlier, housing, infrastructure, and education, that we are better situated than almost any other community in the state, and I would argue almost any other community in the country, to actually find solutions to those challenges. Right now, one of our biggest blessings is a council and a school committee who are working together on education. It's a city council that understands the necessity of resiliency planning and the investments that we need. That's a great starting point. When you layer on top of that the community we have around us, boards and commissions, right, like the Beach Commission, that are doing the hard work of making the hard decisions we need to think about Newport's future. Organizations like the nonprofits that we have in this community that have stepped up for Learn 365 to help provide the wraparound services needed to provide additional support to back up our teachers and to support our kids to make sure they can reach their full potential. I think we can do it. Let me give you an example of a bright point I saw recently. Last night, while the Beach Commission was meeting, we had a joint meeting with the school committee, and we were focused on test scores. There are some pretty grim results in those test scores, but there are some bright points that we need to think and realize and focus on as well. Multi-language learners, people who come to this country, students who are in the school system who don't speak English when they start school, after they go through a training program, meet or exceed their peers who are primary English speakers. That is tremendous. That means that the potential that we have in our population here in Newport, with the appropriate support, is capable of meeting and exceeding expectations and helping us drive the future. I think if we can work together as a community to keep focusing and fixing these issues, we're going to be just fine.
Mayor Xay, I say 2024, you say?
I say this is the year for change. I say this is the year we're going to be making the big decisions, the big investments that we need to make sure Newport is here for the future for its residents.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the Newport This Week video podcast series every week on newportthisweek.com and the Newport This Week YouTube channel. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Mayor, thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill.